of what anybody else can do. So
hello.
Oh, we're live. Okay.
Right. Oh shit, we're actually live. It's like that hot mic moment. We're like, hey, you know, we're like
I was still talking.
Hello, Deb.
Hey, can you believe it's December?
Well, it feels like December in Georgia, Debbie, because
does
like
it
30 degrees out, and I'm like, what? I'm gonna have to move more south, man.
We're not quite there yet. I think it hit 45 yesterday or some ridiculous low number.
Yeah, that's like them's fighting words.
I was on the conference call. Go ahead.
Yeah, we're here this week. We're going to talk a little bit about something novel, something bold. I don't know. We're seeing more B2B companies act like B2C companies, right?
And I will say this, it's about damn time. And I'll tell you what B2B companies have really lost, Jeff. They've lost that loving feeling. They've lost that customer connection.
Sing me a few bars, Deb. Come on now.
We're not going to sing the song. We're really bad. But truly, not only are B2B companies less interactive in a live way with their customers, but the world that we live in is so much screen to screen that exacerbates that disconnect between live people. And so if we're going to take any lessons from B2C going into 2026, it's how do you create those live customer connections? And so the question is that an appropriate strategy for a B2B company to be taking? What do you think, Jeff?
Well, it really is about customer connection, right? And intimacy. And, I'd say B2B's always done some of this, right? But a little bit more formal, maybe it's like a dinner or wine tasting or, some of these other things, or you might have a party at a trade show or a conference. So I don't think B2B companies are strangers, to having live experiences, but I do think
they don't do it to the degree that B2C does because it's just the nature of the business, nor outside of trade shows do they really focus on it that much. That's my point.
No, not as much. We see this mostly with tech companies. They do road shows and they'll go into a city for a half day. They'll host cocktail hours or they'll do wine tasting around some kind of topic or thought leadership. So we're seeing that. But you're right. When we think about B2C, whether it's a fashion or apparel or liquor or some of these other things, all these different experiences that pop up at festivals or malls or other kinds of things will really just create very unique, very engaging events that bring customers to activate the brand. It's typically more called brand activation, right?
It is. I was recently in Atlanta and I was at one of the malls. I haven't been to a mall in like forever. And they had a Shein pop-up, and all the ladies know who Shein is. It's a big retailer out of China. I buy a lot of clothes from there, super cheap, always more stylish than what you can typically get. And there was a line out the door of people just trying to go in and shop because of the loyalty to that brand. And it was called a pop-up, and they were creating this event. So I think as B2B marketers, let's put on our creativity hats and think about not only can we be in front of our customers in a live venue more often, but what kind of experiences do we need to create for them when we are in front of them? They don't want to see your latest, sheet on your latest features and products. Nobody gives two damns about that. What kind of experience can you create for them that will help build brand loyalty? And I think for a lot of people, we've moved beyond going out for drinks and those kinds of things. Not to say that we still don't enjoy that, we do. But people crave experiences. This is what we've learned from this, right? Mm-hmm. So not only, if you take a look at 2026, how can B2B marketers become more in front and with customers? And how can they create experiences for those customers? That is the challenge I want to throw out to everybody.
Getting B2B to think a little bit more broadly and creatively. So what we're not talking about here is, you sponsor a booth at a golf tournament, right? Or you take people to a baseball game and you have the suite and you have everybody bring food. Those are good too, but we're talking more about specific events that we design that are speak to your brand. So whether it's a luxury brand, a service brand, quality brand, or there's something unique aspect, humorous, that you are building a distinct experience that they can't just get by going across the street, and that's really when we're talking about brand activation for B2B, that's really what we're talking about here. And it's not necessarily about spending a lot of money. It's about really focusing on what kind of experience. And don't say you want the customer to buy. That's not what we mean. Like what kind of experience do you want your target prospect to have that would best exemplify your brand promise?
And I think that for a lot of B2B companies, that begins with what is the brand promise and what does the brand represent? We had a session, a LinkedIn Live, a couple of sessions ago, and we talked about this huge focus on brand going into 2026. And I think that's one of the reasons, because companies know that they need a better connection to their customers. People are tired of the phony world. They want more authenticity. So as more and more companies focus on what is our brand, what do we represent, what is our brand promise, why does that mean something to our customers? You take that brand thought, that brand strategy, and then you tie that into brand activation. And then how do you create those experiences?
And I think this really ties into the trend we're seeing, Deb, about what's happening in buying period. For years, when we grew up in websites, this whole focus, right? Get everyone to come to our website, experience our brand on our site within our control, fill out the form, download content, then we'll engage with you, watch the demo, read the white paper.
Yeah.
Now,
and we call that engagement.
Right. We call that engagement. But now, people are getting the information at many points of entry wherever they are at. So they're not coming to our website anymore. So to me, this ties in perfectly with brand activation, because this is about really building experiences wherever our customers might be, not where we want them to be. Right.
Even to your point, Jeff, even to how they experience our content. I mean, you're right. Just putting a piece of content out there and it's so valuable, people want to download it. And because it's so great, they want to buy from us. That's hooey, right? Gamification, interaction, what I need, when I need it, how I need it. I mean, those are all elements of the world that we live in. And then again, taking it back to live, being in front of customers. So if I remember some years back when we were working with Microsoft, and they had built this beautiful world-class center where they could bring executives to come visit and to learn more about Microsoft. And it was their number one predictor of close success. If they could get the executive into that center, because that center wasn't just about the technology today. It was about the culture of Microsoft. It was about the power. It was about the future. And that CEO or that CIO or that CTO could sit in that conference center and just see this new world beginning to take place. Now,
there's a really important word, what you said, and that, which is predict. And so when we are trying to convince our CMOs to do more of these experiences, it's not just about doing the party, right? So any marketer can plan a fun event. It's also about what you're going to predict, what kind of outcome, right? What is the goal of doing this? Yes, we want to activate the brand and build a good experience, and then what? How much pipeline do we get from this? Are we driving more awareness? Are we improving customer loyalty?
A few years ago, I went to Portugal, and my undergraduate degree is in Spanish. So I thought Portuguese would be super easy. Boy, was I wrong. However, and when I found out how difficult it was, I did something kind of fun. My husband had just gotten one of the virtual reality headsets. So to learn some basic Portuguese, I downloaded a program. So I'd be in a train station setting on my virtual reality headset, and I'd be practicing, which train is coming, or I'd be in a restaurant and I'd be trying to order. And that virtual reality experience for me helped me pick up some key terms that we used, throughout our trip. Imagine if somebody came to us and they said, Jeff and Debbie, if I had a revenue marketing organization that was banging, that was like, we could walk into the boardroom and they knew what kind of contribution marketing made, and we had that seat and that voice at the table, what would my world look like? Well, let me show you what your world would look like, right? It could kind of take it into an experience of what would be different and how that would be different. So I think what I'm saying is these experiences have to mean something to the person. Whether it's that CIO, CTO sitting at headquarters at Microsoft with this, helping create this vision of where the technology needs to go for their company, or whether it's something more, more personal, but it has to, these connections have to find a way to speak to people.
I think that's the very nature of an experience, right? And the brand promise has to be the promise to the person, and not just at the corporate level. So I think then beyond that, not just figuring out the focus of the event, what kind of outcome you want, who you're targeting, because an event for existing customers is different than an event for net new prospects, right?
But you know what, Jeff? And this was many years ago. You and I met in 2004. And one of the things that I did that year when I bought Eloqua was we set up this customer event. And we were a small, scrappy little technology organization that sold to big call centers. And that customer event literally saved our company, because we were able to bring customers in. It was just customers. There were no prospects. There was no that kind of selling stuff. But what we worked with them on was, what was their world like? We had them sharing with each other what their world was like, the problems, the big, the bad, the ugly, how they solve things. And then, of course, our solution, which helped them in different ways. But what it allowed these executives to do is to, number one, flock with other like-minded executives who were experiencing similar problems, and to feel like they weren't alone. And then number two, to begin to craft what the future could look like so that it could be better. And again, to do that with like-minded executives. I mean, that was the key. It was a very, very powerful event.
Yeah, no, events can be very powerful, but they can also, if they're not properly planned, right, they can get out of hand. Do you think, though, there is a risk for marketers who overly adopt experiences at the expense of proving out digital performance and capabilities? Like, well, digital's not working anymore, right? Demand gen's not working anymore, so let's just switch over to live events because it's so much better.
Well, again, we had to put a definition on the word experience. Coming to a party is an experience. Coming to a talk is an experience. So you need a better definition of experience. What is it that you want that experience to do for your customer or your prospect? And we always say buy, but there's got to be something more. And I think the most successful experiences that we're seeing now are tied to the brand promise, that tie to why customers care about that brand. And again, without that background in place, you're not going to be able to create these unique experiences like that, unless you're playing in the world of more B2C. And what I mean by that, we've seen pop-up events in New York. They're all around AI. And what's the coolest thing about AI? And just showing them one little cool feature and having like 10,000 people at a golf show.
But they're grounding it. Like Quad, for example, did a pop-up coffee shop.
Exactly.
To help explain, AI in a simple way. So whatever it's really about making it approachable, right? Whether your concept is very complicated, abstract, expensive, whatever it might be, you're trying to make your brand relatable in such a way that you don't use the marketing jargon.
Yeah.
It's on the terms of your customer.
What about the ice bars? Are those gone now? How many ice bars have we been to through the years?
That shows you all how
It
many.
was an experience.
Yes, it was an experience. Yeah.
It was an experience. Did it make me want to buy? Did it give me a warm and cozy feeling about the brand? No, it just gave me an experience, and I did not associate it with the brand.
True, and I think it was more used around the conferences that we went to, and so look, I think about all the parties we threw at some of these conferences, and everyone had a good time, and it was nice to know everyone was looking forward to coming to our party. But could you specifically tie revenue or something back to that? No, I don't know. But I mean, it's a way of getting.
But here's the deal: it was very revenue oriented, and everybody knew that. The kinds of experiences that we're talking about now, yes, revenue is always the end game, but it really is more about brand affinity. I want to deal with this brand because I trust that they care about people. So it's a big bite for a B2B company to go down that path, unless they were created as some kind of purpose-driven organization. Like, who is the socks company? BAM. They sell all the socks. They if you buy a pair of socks, then they donate a pair of socks.
Oh, yeah, I'm trying to.
Oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. I can't remember their name, but it's a purpose-driven company. So you feel good about buying from a company like that. And there are B2B organizations like that as well. I think we just have to get back to how can we connect with a human being, either in a very authentic way and or helping them by creating, it's like holding a place for them. And when we were doing the CMO Council a few years ago, one of the number one reasons why people came is they told us, as a CMO, it's lonely. I have no one to talk to. If I have a problem, who do I go to? I have no one that I can go to. And so in that space, they were able to share thoughts, feelings, actions, perceptions that they were not able to share with anyone else. That is an example of an experience. And that's why many years ago, with the company I was with in Atlanta, we were so successful with that customer event because we set that up. And in setting that up, we created a brand affinity, through that.
Yeah, one of the things I was thinking about, how we've had our values at our company forever. And I think every company has some set of core values. And then we realized a few years back, just having values in words and getting people to memorize them, that doesn't actually help people understand how to behave, right? Or what kind of culture we want. So we started adding behaviors to kind of reinforce those values. And then by focusing on the behaviors each week, that's how we teach the values. So, when we design experiences, right, that prove the positioning, I think you have to then make sure the experience is tailored to what it is you're trying to do. So if you say, for example, how many companies say we're customer obsessed? So if you're going to have an experience and your brand promise is customer obsession, then that experience has to really reinforce that.
It does.
If you're selling simplicity, ease of use, right? We're going to make, we built a better mousetrap, and we're going to make your life easier. Then the whole activation can't take 27 steps, right? To be able to do it, it's got to be like 3. If you're an AI first company, which everyone's now like the .com era, right? I'm .ai.
Yeah. Everyone, it was .com, now it's .ai.
Right, but then make sure that people are interacting and using AI as part of that activation experience, right? So I think it's got to be like, you can't just use words to use words, and when you're building out these experiences, you really have to be intentional about it. Whatever your brand promise might be, you really got to think about how the event's going to activate and draw that out.
I agree. So as we look into 2026, here's the challenge for marketers, B2B marketers that are listening to this, right? Number one, what is your brand promise? And if you don't have one, you're kind of hamstrung. You're going to have a hard time being authentic and connecting with your customers, right? But what is your brand promise? And then how can you find unique and creative ways to engage with your customers around that brand promise? And you're going to have to be very creative, and you're going to have a very clear definition of experience. I kind of see an experience maturity curve. Experience, go to a party. Experience, go to a talk. Experience, and then you have to kind of like, and again, I don't know what the definition is. Of course, I'll probably think of one after we hang up here, but define experience and what it is you want them to walk away with. I think that'll be the key thing for you. And then get really, really creative and think about all the screen time the world is in right now. And how can you break through that in a way that is meaningful to customers?
And start small. We're not saying go out and do, a full roadshow.
I don't know. I kind of like the virtual reality thing. I'm a big fan of virtual reality. How cool is that? I know there's other things to do as well, and that's not necessarily real, but
we're really in that right now.
Yeah, that's right. So, but Jeff, the world, the best companies have always been customer obsessed. Those are the companies that thrive. And as marketers, we have to get out of this old pattern of thinking that there's only one way. Right? You got to do the trade show. Think differently. Think outside the box. Think about what matters to people and try to incorporate that into your marketing mix. That would be the message for 2026.
And especially as we increasingly deal and live in a world with AI, the experience makes a human connection, which is still critically important. Yeah, you can use AI to scale, make yourself more efficient, but you can't use AI to replace the relationship that you have with your customers.
Although I will say, I know people who use AI as a therapist. I am not joking.
Well, it's certainly cost effective, I guess.
Very cost effective. That's right.
Always available, always on.
Oh my God. I recently had a circumstance where I had a family member who was very ill. And I was explaining the whole situation because I was trying to understand what some of these tests meant. And ChatGPT tells me, Debbie, I'm so sorry for everything that's going on with your niece right now. And I'm like, oh, you're so sweet, ChatGPT. It was a moment. It was a real moment.
Yes. Well, AI is great, but what's great are people. So, and that's really the message here.
That's right.
It's you want to build a better experience. Really make it about the relationship. Truly put your customer first. Activate that brand, and 2026 be off to the races. And
I think we're going to see some very, very innovative ways that B2B companies will be activating that brand.
Looking forward to it. We're going to be front and center.
We'll be there.
Guys, we'll see you next week.
All righty. Bye, everybody.